Lightning forked across the dunes, turning the world briefly silver before plunging it back into storm-dark violet. Ethan Cale tightened the straps of his field pack and sprinted toward the burning trail gouged into the desert floor. The crash plume had been visible from miles away, too bright, too sudden to ignore, and the emergency beacon on his wrist wouldn't stop pulsing. One life form detected, weak, deteriorating. He vaulted over a fallen ridge of glassed sand, boots skidding on the razor-thin surface. Each breath tasted like charged metal. The downed shuttle came into view, a half-melted husk, its hull peeled open, interior flickering with dying lights. A faint sound drifted out, not a scream, not even a word, more like a small, trembling gasp, something alive. "Hold on," Ethan muttered, though no one could hear him. His voice felt instinctive, dragged up from memories he'd buried. Another crash site, another child he hadn't been fast enough to reach. He shoved the memory down and pushed forward, grasping the side of the shuttle. The metal burned his palms through the gloves. Inside, heat slammed into him like a wall. Coolant hissed from a ruptured conduit, fogging the air with shimmering particles. Ethan ducked low, scanning through the smoke. There beneath a bent support beam, something glowed faintly. Blue, soft, rhythmic, a child. She was pinned, maybe 8 or 9, her skin a pale dusk blue that shimmered like moonlit water. Her hair dark at the roots but streaked with iridescent silver, floated weightlessly in the charged air, responding to static currents he didn't understand. Her eyes were half open, reflecting the dim emergency lights. And around her throat, faint lines pulsed in patterns like moving constellations. Alien, frightened, hurt. "I've got you," Ethan whispered, dropping to his knees beside her. The beam had crushed the left side of her leg at a brutal angle. Not a clean break, a crushing injury. He swallowed the surge of panic. "You're going to be okay, I promise." She didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. The constellations at her throat flickered from panic bright to something softer, hope maybe. The hull screeched as the shuttle shifted in the wind. The power core's whine rose in pitch. He had seconds, maybe 20, before it cooked off and took them with it. Ethan braced his shoulder under the twisted beam. It didn't move. The child let out a tiny, pained sound that hit him like a knife. No, come on. He dug his boots into the scorched floor, pushed harder, muscles screamed, the core screamed louder. Finally, with a metallic groan, the beam lifted just enough. He grabbed the girl and pulled her free. She clung instinctively to his jacket, gripping fistfuls of fabric as the world shook around them. The core surged. Ethan turned his back to the explosion, wrapped himself around her, and activated his emergency thermal shield. 3 seconds felt like eternity. 1, the world detonated in blue-white fire. The shockwave hurled them out of the wreck, tumbling across glass sand. Ethan hit the ground hard, the shield flickering out as smoke curled into the night sky. His ears rang. His vision pulsed. But the child in his arms was moving, shaking, but alive. "Hey," he breathed, brushing coolant dust off her face. "You're safe, you hear me, you're safe." Her luminous throat markings pulsed gently as her eyes locked with his. For a moment, impossibly, she relaxed. Then she fainted. Ethan carried her through the rising storm toward the distant outcropping where he'd parked his rover. Lightning lit the dunes again, closer this time, and thunder rolled like a growl in the earth. He climbed the ridge and froze. Figures were approaching from the horizon, dozens of them. Silver hair whipping in the wind like blades of moonlight, armor glimmering with crystalline edges. Their formation perfect, synchronized, predatory. Mounted on 6-legged beasts that moved in rippling silence. A patrol, not human. At their head rode a woman who did not look real. She dismounted with a fluidity that made Ethan's breath catch, tall, dusk-violet skin catching the stormlight dark hair braided with metallic shards. Her eyes were a fierce, burning gold that scanned him with a predator's precision. Her armor hugged a body built for speed and war, every line sharp, dangerous, beautiful. But it was her expression that pinned him. Cold, assessing, deadly. She stepped close, too close, and her gaze locked on the unconscious child in his arms. The golden fire in her eyes sharpened into something sharper, deeper. "You touched what is ours, human." Her voice rolled like thunder wrapped in silk, beautiful, resonant, and edged with steel. Ethan swallowed. "I saved her." A flicker so fast he almost missed it, crossed her features. Surprise, then something else, something unreadable. She knelt beside him, brushing a strand of silver-streaked hair from the child's face with a gentleness that contrasted violently with her warrior's poise. "She is Elira." Her jaw tightened. "My sister." The storm rumbled overhead as more riders surrounded them, weapons glowing faintly. The woman rose, towering over him, eyes burning with authority and emotion he couldn't interpret. I am Captain Saris Vale of the Calorie Dominion. Her throat markings pulsed like a warning flare. And by our law. She looked at the child in his arms. Your actions demand judgment. Ethan tightened his grip instinctively. What judgment? Her eyes locked onto his, and for the first time something dangerous sparked there. Interest, curiosity, conflict. You will come with us, she said softly, almost too softly, or you will die here. Her warriors closed in, forming the storm swallowed the horizon as Ethan's captors moved in a diamond formation around him, their mounts gliding over the dunes with predatory grace. The child, Elira, lay unconscious in his arms, her faint luminescent throat markings dimming and brightening in uneven intervals. Whatever species she was, Ethan could tell one thing clearly. She was fading. Captain Saris Vale rode at his left, her silhouette cutting sharply against the lightning streaking the sky. She hadn't looked at him since giving the order to march, but the tension rolling off her was palpable, like the storm itself responded to her mood. He tried to break the silence. She needs medical attention. Saris didn't glance at him. We know. Her leg is crushed, internal bleeding. She has maybe. She will not die. The words sliced through the air, not while she breathes. Ethan clenched his jaw, then let me help her. That made her look at him. Her golden eyes caught the lightning and seemed to glow with their own fire. You have helped enough. He exhaled sharply. Saving her was a problem. Saving her binds you, she replied, voice low. You intervened in the fate of a firstborn daughter of the Calorie. That carries consequences you do not understand. Explain it to me. Saris's jaw tightened. No. He almost laughed from disbelief. No. You will learn soon. And I will not risk my sister's life while you distract me with questions. Her tone ended the conversation. But Ethan had already learned something important. She wasn't angry. She was afraid, not of him, of losing the girl. Despite her warrior exterior, despite her icy composure, Saris Vale radiated a fierce protectiveness that made Ethan's chest tighten with something he didn't want to name. Ahead, a structure came into view, a sprawling, domed outpost glowing softly against the storm-dark desert. Not metal, not stone, some kind of living crystalline material pulsing in harmony with the thunder. Saris lifted her hand. Open the gate. The dome's surface rippled like water, parting to reveal a sheltered interior lit by hovering orbs of blue flame. Ethan followed the warriors inside. The moment the dome sealed behind them, the storm's sound muffled into distant thunder. Immediately the tension among the Calorie shifted. Whispers, glances, weapons lowered but not relaxed. 3 elder figures approached. Their hair was woven with shimmering threads, their armor etched with symbols that glowed faintly when they moved. Their eyes, dark violet and ancient, locked on Ethan and the unconscious child in his arms. One spoke, a woman with lines of silver running from her temples to her jaw. Captain Vale, the storm brought more than lightning tonight. Sarah stepped forward, fists at her sides. Elira lives thanks only to him. The elder's gaze flicked to Ethan, sharp, assessing, not impressed. A human. A rescuer, Sarah said, voice hardening. He pulled her from a burning craft. Ethan lifted the girl slightly. She needs care now. The elder made a subtle gesture. 2 medics rushed forward, one carrying a crystalline stretcher, the other a cluster of tools that looked half-organic, half-engineered. Elira was taken from Ethan's arms. Saris's shoulders eased only when the girl was stabilized. Then she turned back to Ethan, and for the first time he saw a crack in her composure, a flicker of gratitude, quickly smothered. The elders will decide your fate, she said quietly. What fate? Ethan asked. A male elder answered this time, deeper voice, sharp eyes. You saved a firstborn. By Calorie law, you may not leave until the covenant of debt is resolved. Ethan blinked. Covenant of what? Saris inhaled slowly, then met his gaze with a mixture of irritation and something dangerously close to sympathy. It means, she said, you belong to us until the debt is paid. Ethan stiffened. I didn't agree to that. You didn't need to, the elder replied. Our laws are older than your species' recorded history. Another elder stepped closer, studying him like one examines a weapon rather than a person. There are 3 paths, she said. Ethan felt Saris go still beside him. 1, you take the Protector's oath, binding your life to Elira's safety. He swallowed. Okay, what's 2? 2, you refuse the oath and are marked as a breaker of fate. Ethan frowned. And what does that mean? Exile, the elder said softly. Permanent, painful. He didn't like her tone. And option 3. All 3 elders spoke in unison. There is no option 3. Ethan looked at Saris. Her expression was unreadable, but her throat markings betrayed her, pulsing faintly with restrained emotion. Maybe fear, maybe hope, maybe both. She stepped forward close enough that her voice reached only him. If you choose the oath, she murmured, you will live among us, train among us, be bound to our tribe. It is not a burden lightly carried. And if I refuse? Her golden eyes softened, just barely, a hairline fracture in her armor. Then I lose the only person my sister trusted as she burned. The words hit harder than any weapon. The elders waited, the warriors watched, the dome hummed. And Saris Vale, war captain, stormborn, terrifying and beautiful, stood before him, breathing too carefully as if bracing for his answer. He wasn't ready to give one, not yet. But before he could speak, a chime rang through the dome. The medics emerged from the healing chamber. She will live. The dome lights dimmed as if responding to Elira's single word, protector. It echoed through Ethan's skull, ringing with more weight than the storm outside. The medics looked stunned. The elders stiffened. And Captain Saris Vale's expression, usually carved from polished steel, fractured into something raw, not anger, not disbelief, but something closer to fear for him, for her sister, for whatever ancient law he had just stepped into without knowing. Elira's small hand remained outstretched toward Ethan, her luminous throat markings flickering in soft, fragile patterns. Saris moved first. Elira, she said gently, kneeling beside the girl. Look at me, you're safe, I'm here. But Elira didn't look at her. Her gaze stayed locked on Ethan with unnerving clarity for a child who had almost died. Her small fingers curled, beckoning him closer. Protector, she repeated. Ethan swallowed hard. What does that mean? He whispered. Saris's jaw tightened. She rose slowly, turning toward the elders. We need to speak now. The eldest among them, silver-threaded hair, eyes like amethyst glass, gave one grave nod and motioned for Ethan to follow. 2 warriors flanked him immediately, not with hostility but with formality, guarding him, escorting him, preparing him for judgment. The elders led them into a chamber carved from translucent crystal that glowed faintly when touched. Saris remained beside Ethan, arms crossed, golden eyes locked forward. The way she stood, rigid but close, reminded him of a blade drawn halfway from its sheath. Ready to strike, but not yet. When the chamber sealed behind them, silence fell. The first elder spoke. Protector is not a word our young speak lightly, nor without meaning. Saris's throat markings flared once, a pulse of irritation. She is still healing, disoriented. She spoke with clarity, the elder countered, and she chose. Chose what? Ethan cut in, frustration rising. All eyes turned to him. The second elder stepped forward. In our culture, a protector is not a guardian, it is a bond, ancient, spiritual, rare. Ethan's pulse spiked, meaning. Saris answered this time. It means she tethered herself to you. He blinked. She what? Tethered, Saris repeated, voice tight. Linked her survival to yours, her trust, her emotional grounding, her instinctive safety response. Ethan stared at her. I didn't ask for that. Children don't ask before breathing, Saris murmured. But why me? Because you ran into fire for her, the elder said simply. Because you touched her with bare hands, because you shielded her with your own body. Saris's voice dropped to a whisper, barely audible. And because she has not spoken that word since our mother died. That hit harder than any storm gust. Ethan's chest tightened. He looked back toward the healing chamber through the crystal wall, saw the small silhouette lying on the bio-bed, silver-blue eyes half closed. She's a child, Ethan said quietly. She didn't mean. She meant it, the elder interrupted. The markings at her throat do not lie. Saris finally turned toward him fully, her expression a storm held behind a dam. This is not your fault, she said softly, but it is your responsibility now. He nearly stepped back. Hold on, responsibility. You expect me to raise her. Saris's gaze hardened. No, to protect her, guide her, stand with her until the bond resolves. And how long is that? The elders looked at one another. It ends, the eldest said, only when she chooses to release you. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. So I'm stuck here. Stuck, Saris's voice sharpened. My sister lives because of you. Our laws bind you because of that life, not as punishment. Feels like punishment. Better than death, the male elder said simply. Ethan stared at him. Was that seriously on the table? The elder didn't blink. Refusal would have marked you a breaker of fate. Our law is older than your species' cities. It does not bend because you dislike its weight. Saris took a slow step forward, closing the space between them. Her presence filled the room, heat, tension, the faint scent of ozone and something floral. She looked up at him, golden eyes locked onto his with unnerving intensity. "You saved her," she whispered, "and I am grateful, truly." Her throat markings dimmed, then brightened again, something like honesty glowing through them. "But if you abandon her now," she said, "you will break her in a way no healer can mend." Ethan felt the words carve into him. This wasn't politics, this wasn't ritual, this wasn't law, this was a sister begging without letting herself beg. He exhaled slowly. "If I accept, what happens?" The elders spoke together. "You become protector, you live among us. You train with us, you answer to our laws. And if I refuse?" Saris's jaw tightened. "You don't want that path." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Ethan looked down at his hands, the same hands that had pulled Elira from fire. The same hands that still smelled faintly of coolant and burnt metal. He didn't know these people. He didn't know their laws. He didn't know their world. But he knew the look in a child's eyes when they believed someone would keep them safe. He had seen it before. He had failed it before. He wouldn't fail again. He lifted his head. "I'll take the oath." Saris didn't move, but her throat markings flared brighter than he'd ever seen, brilliant, fierce, almost beautiful. The elders bowed their heads. "It is decided." As they prepared the ritual chamber, Saris stepped beside him, not touching but close enough that he felt the heat of her presence. "You don't understand what you've agreed to," she murmured. "Then explain it." She hesitated. For the first time since he'd met her, something vulnerable broke through her golden gaze. "If you become protector," she whispered, "you don't just bind to Elira." Her voice lowered until it was almost a breath. "You bind to her family." The ritual chamber lay beneath the central dome, an underground hall carved entirely from pale violet crystal. The walls shimmered with currents of soft bioluminescence that pulsed like a heartbeat. Ethan stepped inside slowly, aware of every eye on him. Warriors lined the perimeter in ceremonial formation, their silver-threaded hair and etched armor catching the glow like living metal. Saris Vale stood at the center. The captain, impossibly poised, impossibly composed, looked less like a warrior now and more like the embodiment of her people's law. Her golden eyes reflected the chamber's soft glow, but her throat markings pulsed with a faint, underlying tension. Fear not of him, of what this ritual could mean for her sister, for herself. Elira lay on a raised, crystalline bed between them. The girl's breathing was steadier now, her small chest rising and falling with fragile softness. When she opened her eyes and saw Ethan, her markings brightened with unmistakable relief. "Protector," she whispered again, almost shy this time. Saris inhaled sharply. Ethan noticed she wouldn't look directly at the child's face. It cost her something to keep her composure. Without the armor of command, Ethan suspected she might have been on her knees beside her sister. The eldest elder stepped forward. "Ethan Kale," the elder intoned, "you have chosen the protector's oath. Know that this vow binds your life, your voice, your choices to the safety of the child Elira Vale until she releases you." A second elder added, "Our bond is not slavery, it is not service, it is trust freely chosen." Ethan exhaled, "I understand." The first elder's gaze sharpened. "Do you?" Saris finally turned to him, eyes blazing with something brighter than ceremonial fire. "This bond will shape you," she said softly. "Shape us, the tribe, our laws." A pause, "My sister." Her throat markings pulsed once, faint and trembling. "That is why I ask again. Are you certain?" Ethan wasn't a mystic, wasn't a warrior, wasn't Callery. But he remembered the feeling of her small fingers in his jacket as the world burned around them. Remembered the first moment she had relaxed in his arms. Remembered the way Saris had looked at her, like the universe could fall apart as long as her sister didn't. He nodded. "I'm certain." Something in Saris released, just a fraction, but enough that he felt the change in the air. The elder lifted a blade. It was unlike anything Ethan had seen, thin enough to be translucent, humming with faint inner light, edges rippling like heat waves. Not metal, not crystal, something alive. "Offer your hand," the elder commanded. Ethan extended his right hand. The blade sliced his palm with surgical precision, a sting of heat, then the warmth of blood running down his wrist. Elira flinched as if she felt it. The elder turned to the child. "Elira Vale, do you accept this life bound to yours?" Elira reached toward Ethan without hesitation. Her tiny fingers brushed his cut, and her throat markings flared so brightly the chamber's crystals responded, glowing in a synchronized pulse. Saris sucked in a breath. "Then the tether is formed," the elder said, but the ritual was not done. Family must answer, another elder declared, turning toward Saris. Ethan's heart stuttered. Saris Vale stepped forward, her golden gaze locked onto his. Her throat markings pulsed in slow, dangerous patterns. The air between them thickened. And she extended her hand. A warrior brought forth a ceremonial blade, shorter than the elder's, sleeker, more elegant. Saris took it without breaking eye contact. Then, slowly, deliberately, she made a shallow cut across her own palm. A warrior around them gasped, others stiffened, some whispered, Ethan stared. What does that? Saris stepped closer. The distance between their hands vanished. She lifted his cut palm, raised her own to meet it, and pressed them together. Her blood mixed with his, the chamber lights dimmed. Her throat markings flared to full brilliance, gold, violet, burning like twin suns under her skin. Gasps echoed around the chamber. The elders froze, stunned. One whispered, horrified or awed, Ethan couldn't tell. Blood binding from a captain. Ethan's breath caught. Saris. She leaned in, not touching, but close enough that he felt the warm tremor in her breath. You protect my sister, she whispered, voice shaking in a way he'd never heard before. Then I stand with you. Thunder rumbled faintly above the dome, like the storm itself was listening. Why would you do that? He whispered. Her golden eyes softened, the fire within them tempered by something startlingly human. Because Elira does not choose lightly. A beat, and neither do I. Their joined hands glowed faintly as the cut edges sealed, leaving a thin line of silver light on Ethan's skin. A calorie mark, a veil mark, the elder spoke with a voice shaken but resolute. So be it, protector and bond sister, the old law accepts. Ethan stiffened. Bond what? Saris turned her head toward him, and there was no hiding the emotion flickering across her features. Fear, resolve, vulnerability all tangled together. It means, she said quietly, our fates are now tied. Ethan stared at her, heartbeat thundering in his ears. To me, he whispered. Yes, she breathed, to me. Silence reverberated through the chamber as the weight of that truth settled over all of them. Then, a roar split the air above them. Not thunder, not wind, a warning siren. A warrior rushed into the chamber, breathless. Captain, raiders breaching the outer dome. Saris's expression snapped back. The dome shook under the force of the first explosion, dust raining from the crystal ceiling as Ethan sprinted behind Saris through the narrow hall. Warriors poured past them in synchronized waves, silver hair trailing like comet streams, weapons glowing with bioluminescent cores. The sirens blared in rising pulses, not random, rhythmic, a signal, a warning, a countdown. Saris barked commands in calorie tongue, her voice slicing through the chaos as warriors took formation. She moved like a storm given human shape, fluid, lethal, terrifyingly beautiful. As she ran, her throat markings shifted in pulsing patterns Ethan didn't recognize. Until now, he hadn't realized those markings could express fear. She stopped abruptly at a junction as a secondary blast shook the structure, sending a wave of heat rolling down the corridor. Ethan braced against the wall. Who are they? He shouted over the alarm. Raiders, Saris answered, eyes fixed down the hall. Syndicate mercenaries, smugglers, slavers. Her jaw clenched. They target our young, our gifted. Elira. Yes. Before he could ask more, a warrior sprinted up to Saris, armor scorched from plasma fire. Captain, they've breached the lower ward. They're heading for the healing chamber. Then we intercept them here. She turned to Ethan. Stay directly behind me, do not break formation. I can fight. You can die, she corrected sharply. And if you die, the tether breaks, and so does Elira. Her gaze softened for one heartbeat, just one. Stay close, breathe with me. Another explosion shook the corridor. No more time. The raiders arrived in a metal thunder of boots and charged weapons, humanoid silhouettes in matte black armor, their helmet visors glowing with scanning grids. Syndicate troops, exactly as she'd warned. The first volley of plasma fire lit the corridor. Saris moved like lightning. Her glaive carved a blue arc through the air, catching the nearest raider across the chest. His armor split in a shower of sparks, and he fell without a sound. Ethan raised the crystalline dagger she'd given him, its surface vibrating faintly in his grip. It wasn't a human weapon. It felt alive, like it was humming with Saris's heartbeat. Another raider rushed him. Ethan parried on instinct, the dagger's edge slicing through the mercenary's wrist armor as if it were cloth. The man staggered back, stunned. Saris didn't even glance. Good, she said through clenched teeth. Keep moving. They pushed forward through the corridor, each step bringing them closer to the healing wing. Ethan's heart hammered in his chest, matching the pulse of the tether, soft, warm, insistent. Elira, she was afraid. He felt it through the bond like distant thunder. Faster, Sarah snapped, hearing his breathing. She feels you, she knows you're coming. They reached the end of the hall and froze. The healing chamber door had been blown inward. Smoke curled out in thin ribbons. Sparks rained from shredded panels. Inside, silhouettes moved, two raiders dragging something small between them. Elira, Ethan bolted forward without thinking. "Ethan, stop!" Saris shouted. But he was already moving. Instinct, fear, fury, everything blurred into a single motion. Ethan crashed into the nearest raider with enough force to send both of them sprawling. The second raider yanked Elira back, lifting a shock baton to silence her. Before Ethan could react, the world moved faster than his eyes. Saris' veil struck from the side, not graceful, not ceremonial, but raw and vicious. Her blade cut through the raider's thigh armor, dropping him instantly. She pivoted, grabbed his helmet, and slammed it into the crystal wall with a crack that echoed across the chamber. Elira scrambled behind Ethan, trembling, clutching his torn jacket. "Protector," she whispered, voice breaking. The tether pulsed painfully. Saris took a shuddering breath, something between relief and terror, and crouched beside her sister. "Elira, look at me. Are you hurt?" The girl shook her head, eyes wet. Her markings glowed weakly. She reached for Ethan first, then hesitantly for her sister. Saris noticed. Her throat markings dimmed, hurt flashing across her features, but she masked it with composure. "We need to go," she said firmly, scooping Elira into her arms. "There may be more raiders." They weren't wrong. As they stepped back into the corridor, the lights flickered, once, twice, then died completely. Darkness. A moment later, a foreign voice crackled over the dome's intercom system, warped and metallic. "Captain Vale," the voice purred. "We have your air, and you're human." Ethan stiffened. Saris's markings flared bright with fury. "Who speaks?" "I do not owe you a name," the voice hissed. "Only terms." Ethan moved closer. "What does he mean you're human?" Saris didn't answer. "Bring the child," the voice continued, "and the protector, or we collapse the dome." Ethan's stomach knotted. They were the targets. Him and Elira. Saris's whisper was barely audible. They planned this. The voice grew colder. 1 hour. Or the storm outside becomes your tomb. Ethan's pulse pounded. The tether pulsed back, fear, confusion, the small mind of a child unable to hide its terror. Saris turned to him, jaw set, eyes burning. "They want you because you're protector-bound," she said, "and they want her because she is firstborn." Her grip tightened on her sister. "They will not get either." Ethan frowned. "We fight our way out." Saris's eyes narrowed in consideration. "We can't defend the entire dome, not with Elira in danger." Then her voice softened to a whisper. "But there is a place where the storm cannot reach, a storm vault beneath the outpost. It's safe. Safe enough," she hesitated. "But the vault is small, 2 people at most." Ethan looked at Elira in her arms. Saris shook her head. "Elira cannot survive the vault's pressure shift. She must stay with the healers." Ethan stared. "Then why would we?" "Because you are the target," Saris snapped. "And if they take you, the tether will rip through her mind. It will destroy her." The truth cracked through him like lightning. Saris exhaled, stepping closer, so close that her armor brushed his chest. "Come with me," she said quietly. "Please." It wasn't an order. It wasn't a command. It was the closest thing to fear Ethan had heard in her voice. He nodded. She handed Elira to a healer and squeezed her sister's hand one last time. "I will return," she whispered. Elira's markings flared faintly with trust. Then Saris grabbed Ethan's wrist, pulled him into a sprint, and they plunged down the lower corridor toward the storm vault. As they descended, the alarms changed pitch, a deep, droning sound like a beast waking from slumber. The vault door sealed with a hydraulic hiss that tremored through the narrow chamber. Ethan felt the pressure shift immediately, air thickening, the subtle pull behind his ears signaling rapid atmospheric stabilization. The small space glowed faintly, bioluminescent lines sweeping across curved walls like a heartbeat captured in crystal. Saris stood with her back to him at first, one hand braced against the wall, chest rising and falling in silent breaths. Her throat markings flickered unevenly, anger, fear, restraint, all warring beneath her skin. Outside, the storm screamed. Inside, only their breath existed. Finally, she spoke. "They want you, Protector, and they do not care who dies for it." Her voice carried no armor now, just exhaustion and something raw. Ethan stepped closer, careful not to crowd her. "Then we fight our way out, together." She turned, eyes glowing gold in the dim light. "In the vault, there is no fighting." No weapons, no exit until the cycle ends. Her gaze lowered to the dagger he still held. Even that is useless against the storm's pulse. He slowly set it aside. Saris exhaled. Good. Another crack of thunder rattled the vault. The walls shivered, the floor hummed. The storm is being pushed, Ethan said quietly. It's not natural. No, she agreed. Someone feeds it coordinates, pulse patterns, a lure. They want to break open our world, using the storm as their hammer. And us as bait. A muscle in her jaw tightened. Not us, you. Ethan stepped closer. Why me? Her throat markings glowed softly. Fear, frustration, longing woven into light. Because you did something unheard of, you acted like one of us without being one of us. She swallowed. You saved a veiled child, that makes you valuable, symbolic. A beat powerful. He let that sink in. And you, he asked gently. What does this bond make you? Her gaze snapped up to his, sharp, bright, burning. Vulnerable, she whispered. Not a warrior's word, not a captain's. A woman-s. Another violent tremor hit the vault. Sarah staggered forward, and he caught her by reflex, hands closing around her waist as the world jolted. Her breath crashed into his chest. Her palms braced against him. The light on her throat surged in dizzying patterns. Steady, he murmured, holding her through the quake. Her eyes fluttered shut for a second, just one. When she opened them again, the storm in her expression was different. Not fear, not anger, something warmer. Something she hated losing control of. Ethan, she said softly, the tether reacts to closeness, to shared breath. He realized it at the same moment she did. The vault was small, too small. Every inhale pressed their bodies closer in the dark. Saris, he breathed, her throat markings pulsed like wildfire. This is protocol, she said weakly, unconvincingly. We regulate breathing to conserve oxygen. He didn't step back. She didn't move away. A low hum filled the vault, the storm's energy slamming into the reinforced shell. Pressure spiked. The lights dimmed. Their bodies were driven together again by the violent shift. She gasped, and the sound ignited something inside him. Her forehead brushed his. Her breath mingled with his. The tether pulsed between them, alive, insistent, intimate. Saris, his voice broke. Tell me what you want. She shook her head once, but her hands stayed on his shoulders, fingers trembling. I want, she whispered, what I am not allowed to want. The vault lights flickered out. Darkness swallowed them whole. He felt her breath, felt her pulse. Felt her fingertips slide almost unconsciously from his shoulders to the back of his neck. Say it, he murmured. Silence, silence. Then, her lips brushed his, not a kiss, a confession. A breath later she gave in and the contact deepened, gentle at first, then fierce, as if she'd been holding back for years instead of hours. Her hands pulled him closer. His arms slid around her waist. Heat replaced fear. The storm roared like a beast denied entry. When she broke the kiss, her breath trembled against his cheek. You are trouble, she whispered. So are you. Another tremor rocked the vault. Saris gathered herself, pulling back just enough to think. We can still beat them, she said, but only if we get out of this vault alive. And how long is that? She checked the wall gauge, flickering, cracked. 60 minutes, maybe less. Outside, muffled blasts rattled the dome. Ethan's nerves tightened. They're breaching closer. Saris raised her hand to the wall, feeling the pulses beneath it. When the White Roar storm enters its eye, the pressure drops for 90 seconds. The vault will open then. And we run. We run, she confirmed, straight to the dome's generator core. He nodded. We overload it, reset the storm patterns. Her throat markings lit with surprise and admiration. You figured that out fast. Engineer, he shrugged. She stepped closer again, not romantically this time, but with a warrior's respect. Protector, she said quietly. When that door opens, stay beside me, no matter what. He swallowed, always. The vault shuddered, lights flared, the gauge spiked. Saris grabbed his wrist. The eye is passing now. The vault unlocked with a deafening crack. The door blasted open into a wall of electric wind and falling debris. The storm's glow spilled in white, blinding, violent. Saris pulled him through. Chaos met them instantly. Raiders everywhere. Warriors clashing steel to plasma. The dome groaning under the storm's artificial pressure. Elira's cry rang out from somewhere beyond the chaos. Ethan didn't think. He ran. Saris was already beside him, her glaive spinning in lethal arcs. Lightning reflected off her armor. Her markings blazed like living fire. They reached the generator core, a towering crystal engine thrumming with energy. Sparks rained from cut conduits where raiders had sliced into its base. Saris thrust her glaive through the nearest mercenary. Reset it, she shouted. Hurry. Ethan tore open an access panel and plunged his hands into the tangle of luminous wires. I can redirect the storm's feedback if this thing doesn't fry me first. It won't, Sarah said, a beat. It won't, she repeated, softer. He rerouted one final node and slammed his palm onto the activation plate. The generator roared, the storm shrieked, and then silence, a vacuum-sudden dome-wide silence. Every warrior froze, every raider went still. The storm outside collapsed into a whisper robbed of its unnatural momentum. And the dome remained standing. Saris lowered her blade, breath ragged. You stopped it. Ethan looked down at his trembling hand. Or it stopped me, hard to tell. Elira ran from the healers and threw herself into his arms. Her markings glowed like sunrise, her small hands pressed against his chest. Protector, she whispered, voice full warm, safe. Sarah stared at them, sister and protector, and something changed in her eyes. Something final, something certain. The raiders retreated, the dome stabilized. The cavalry warriors raised their weapons in triumphant cries, but Saris moved slowly, almost hesitantly, until she stood before Ethan and Elira. Kale, she said softly. He looked up. Her throat markings glowed with a pattern he didn't know, but instinct told him it mattered. This bond, her voice faltered just once. It was not meant for me. He held Elira closer. Maybe it chose more than one person. A long breath, then. She lifted her hand to his jaw, fingers warm and steady. Then let us choose it together. Ethan didn't have time to speak, because Saris leaned in and kissed him with the certainty of someone who no longer feared the storm. When she pulled back, Elira beamed between them, markings